Okay. And let me share my screen. Okay, so everyone can see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I will say that today our path or journey with JavaScript ends. Today will be the last class where we are going to see JavaScript. Starting from the next one, we are going to see more things related to Cypress. We are going to continue seeing some JavaScript setup like Node.js, some usage, probably things like accessing the DOM, something like that. But it's more JavaScript in practice and not the theory. But today we are going to cover the last topics, more advanced ones, functions. I think we handle really good the functions. We are just going to see some of the things that we're missing, like the parameters and the arrow functions. Give me a sec, I'm going to. Just give me a sec. Everything here. And here. Okay, sorry. Okay, so give me a sec, something missing. Okay, sorry. Can you see it again?
I can see it.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so later we're going to see about the race. Also, I think we handle a race very good. And we are going just like a general coverage about what other things we can do with the race. We're going to see objects, primarily object literals, about classes. I think that is really, let's say, it can be confusing in JavaScript at first, but it's important to understand because it will be used a lot. That is data type validations. Then we're going to see export and import. We're going to see the two ways that we can export and import modules. And then we're going to go with callbacks, promises, and async await that will handle synchronous and asynchronous code. Okay, so let's start. Probably today about the practices, we're going to see how are we in time. So we can do a practice, but we will try to do everything with an example so we can see what we are doing. Okay, so let's start with functions. Remember, there is something called the function signature, and the function signature is the name, the parameter that we send, and only. So we saw that a function has a name. We can send parameters. We're going to see how we can handle these parameters, and we can have a body. So let's just do a little refresh about this. So we're going to say protocol, because we are doing something that is protocol. Okay, so we have the name, we have the body. Here we can do whatever we need. Let's say that in this case, we're going to start easy. I'm going to see the console log. Now, there is something that we need to keep in mind. When we interact with something outside of the function, or we are going to do something that it will be not returned by the function, but interact with an external API, then we are doing something that is called it's called Um, give me a sec. It's called. Oh no, I forgot the name. It was something easy. It was. Oh no, I forget the name. I need to return it. But the thing is that we are doing something that it shouldn't be. I know that I know the name, but I forget it. But the thing is that if we are doing these type of things that interact with an external API, then it's probably that we are going to generate secondary behaviors. For example, in the console log, we're interactive with the std out of the program. So we are printing something in the console. If we're going to do an API request, or we are going to change a variable, then we are doing this secondary code that probably will affect the behavior of the software. That is important to keep in mind because these type of functions can introduce bugs if we are not able to handle correctly. Now, okay, so that is only that I want to just to keep in mind. We're going to see later what is the recommended way. It's not that it's bad, but we just need to be careful about how we can do that. Okay, and this is the basic form of the function. Now we can also send parameters. With the parameters are positioned. So I'm going to say here, I'm going to say type of ball, size of ball, size. And also I'm going to send the sport that we are playing and the ball that we are going to use. And let's say I'm going to say that is something more that is a score. Okay, so I'm going to say here that if size is equal to small, then I can do something like if sport is equal to soccer, and if score, by the way, this is something that you don't really want to do nested ifs, but this only for example. Score is equal to true, then we're going to return a string that says the sport was sport. So we're going to have it here, but say this is a small software and this is a score. This was printed. Now, the clinical tip of today. It's important that the functions don't have more than 3 parameters. 3 parameters is like the limit. The idea is that every function should handle 1 or 2 parameters, 3 being the limit, and 4, well, you need to do some factor. Why? Because the functions should do only one thing. We are applying, or we should apply the principle of single responsibility. So if you are having a function that is 50, 60, 100 lines of code, then you need to do some refactoring. Why? It can help you doing with the maintainability of the code. And because probably you're going to get back to your code 6 months later, 3 weeks later, and you won't remember everything you wrote in the first session, it's important to have everything clear and, well, in the right order so you can understand better. That is a clinical principle. Always try to make your functions short with not much parameters. One or two are okay. And also a descriptive name. And that is also another clinical tip. Also, because a function executes an action, the function name should also reflect that. And probably you're going to use a pair when you are writing a function. In this case, it's a throw the ball. It could be something like get users, log out the session, something like that. So it's important to have a verb at the beginning that will help us understand what the function is doing. Also, we can write the function using const or let, or in other words, we can assign it to a variable. I'm going to do the same example here with the difference that today the name will be the variable and function. Here we are assigning the function reference to a variable. But if I try to execute the function, is going to work the same. The only difference is that now the name will be assigned to the variable, and we're going to reference it. Okay. Now, we have here the arrow functions, but first I want to talk about this, the parameters. With the parameters, as again, you can receive the parameters as an array, we would say, the function. Is important the order. So in the case you write H is in name and name in H, then you're going, probably your software is not going to work, because if I change this like this, it's only fine, right? Because it didn't return anything. It's important, that's important to use, well, to remember the position. And that's one of the reasons why having a lot of parameters here can affect, well, can be an issue, because if you have 10 parameters, then you have to remember the 10 positions of all the parameters. So it's important. Always try to keep not much parameters in every function. Now, what are the types of data that the parameter can receive? We literally can receive all the types that we saw last session: strings, numbers, symbols, sets, maps, whatever you need to pass it here. There is something that can be useful, that is using the object literals. We are going to see that later, but we could do the following. Let's say that I'm going to create this object. I'm going to use these properties. Now, using an object, I do the following. I will do support. I will say oh, okay. Here I'm going to say true. Now I can pass keys here, and here's the complement of the clinical tip. When you have 2 or 3 more parameters that you expect, then probably you need to use an object to have all the parameters in one place. So for example, you are getting a function that says get or fetch user, and you need the ID of the user, the email, the password, let's say the birthday, and I could say the country where he or she lives, because all the parameters are required to the function. Probably you won't be able to split the function because everything is needed to fetch the user. Now you can construct or build this object where you can store this information, and that is the object that you're going to pass. Why is that this is valid and not having a lot of parameters? Well, because you are arranging everything into a single code into a single unit that is related. And because the sport being played is related, we need that word, then it is valid. Now, if you have a flag that is different from with the information that you're using, because you wanted to have everything in a single function, then it's probably that you need to do some refactoring. Okay, so in this case, how I can access this information, I can do the export being plate size, export, and export being plate score. Execute. Oh, it didn't work. Export size scored. Sorry. Now I'm accessing the properties of the object. Now is what again. Now there is something, if you see, we added this object here again and now we are referencing every property that we are using. But we can do something that is called destructuring in JavaScript. And we could do the following now. We can get the size, the export, underscore. Now, this also represents a benefit compared to the way we write the functions normally. That is where the order matters. Here we are using something called that is name parameters, where we are accessing the parameters by name. So it doesn't matter the order that we are using to send the parameters. In this case, I move size to the end. And if I try running again the code, okay, interesting. Okay, it's going to work normally. That's because it doesn't matter. This shouldn't work. What happened? Okay. This is a funny thing. And remember the thing that is so, I told you the last session that you need to keep your values near the place where you are using it. Well, the thing here is that this variable is not referencing the parameter. Now it's referencing the top object, the global object. So in this case, because the sport being played was not found here, then it jumped to the global scope. And there the program found the sport being played, and that's the reason why it didn't break. So I'm going to do a refactor here because I want to use the destructuring code. Again, the function is as the same that we were having. Now the soccer ball was scored, and it's using the same here. And we are referencing the properties of the object that is destructor here. The order don't matter, and we achieve the same results. Now, destructuring is really useful. I use it a lot in my programs, and also you can use it for arrays. In the case you are passing an array of properties, you can do the destructuring like the following. This is with an array, and you can get the key, let's say, because you're having an array where the first property is key, the second one is user. Then you are also applying destructuring, but to arrays. It's important to keep in mind. It can be used for functions, and also it can be used for files. You can do this because let's say that this have a user that was Fernando. You can do this. Now you're going to create a variable called user that references this name here. Okay. This is we are in the parameters, and now let me move to the arrow functions. The arrow functions is a sugar syntax for a normal function. Now, this first. Now, the syntax is the whole. Now, when you are working with arrow functions, you don't need to define this function keyword here anymore. Now, the way you're going to do it is you're going to write this arrow here These parentheses will be the parameters that you are going to use, and the logic will be the same. To write it again here. I have here, and I'm going to apply this dropper here. Sorry. Maybe don't like it. Okay, so we can do the same logic here. Now it's working the same. The difference now is the way that we're declaring. Now, what is the real difference? Well, the arrow functions bind to the global scope. So, for example, in functions where you're using callback, it's probably that your function is going to bind to your global scope instead to the inner function where you are defining. We're going to see what is callback later, but it's only to keep in mind. If you're using an arrow function in places where it's not necessary, or that you don't want to mix your local scope with your global scope, then it's important for it to use function. Now, also, the arrow functions are really useful for the following things. Let's say that you have this array. Remember the array of name that we had last class? I can use map. And here in map, I could say, because the arrow function, if you don't set brackets, the value that you write is going to be returned. In this case, I will say name into uppercase. Uppercase. And look at this. Now it's working. And now we achieve the same with less lines of code, and it can help you to make cleaner code. You could also do the following to uppercase. And then I remember this was an example that someone of you did last session, where the function was abstracted to a variable, and it worked the same. Now, if you can read it easier. We see the array of names. We're going them up and to uppercase name. Okay, we know that we're transforming every name to uppercase. Okay, so the arrow function is very simple. It's very important to understand what we can do. And literally in almost all the places you're going to use arrow functions if you want. Also, you can stick to function. It's not that one thing is better than another. I prefer arrow functions when I know that the code is short, like this, and I prefer the functions as this when I know that I need to execute a more complex logic. But it's up to you. You can use the same, and always remember the arrow functions can have issues with the scope. So it's important just to know where we are going to use it, and we're going to see what are callbacks, so you have an idea. Now, with arrays, I think we are also pretty clear about what we can do with arrays. We define it like this with brackets. Put this in here. Oh. And then this is the way we can define an array using the literal expression, and also we can do it with the constructor. You could say an array. The difference here is that we're going to pass the parameters to the constructor, and we're building the same array. and it's below the rate, the same thing, the same way that we are expecting, and also have the same interface, so we don't have to worry about not working correctly. Now accessing the data. There is this probably you know this, but I just want to make sure. If I'm trying to access the array in the position which value I'm going to get. You can write on the chat, you can tell me which value are we accessing doing this. Yes, that's right, Guillermo. We're accessing basketball. Remember, in the arrays, we start from the position zero. So football is the position 0, basketball is the number 1, and tennis is the number 2. It's just important to clarify this so you can access the data properly. Now, how we can iterate over the data? We have we have 4, but one is not for iterating on data, ways of iterating over the arrays. The one that probably we all know because it's the standard across almost all languages is using for. So let's do it. I'm going to say let I 0 what's that length and blah, and I'm going to say hey, so I want to print the sports in position I. If I try running this, football, basketball, and tennis. A few things to consider here is that we need to declare a variable that will be our counter, the condition that we want to meet, and how we can want to increase the value each iteration. Now, it can be functional, but I don't really like accessing the length and trying to define all the things here. So JavaScript say, okay, let's do this more simple. And there is something called for up, where we can do the same. I will say sport. This is a variable that is created. We can put it here. This name, let sport of the sport. We're saying, okay, every time you iterate, you're going to assign a variable for the sport, and is the one that is related to the actual position of iteration. And I'm going to print here sport. And it's working the same. We're going just to for football, basketball, and tennis. Yeah, this is a more cleaner way that we can use it. And the other way that is to iterate over an array, but we don't get the array is if we use here in. If we use here in, we are accessing the index of the array. But this can be useful for some use cases. But if you're going, but for the most common thing that you're going to use is you will need the value and also the index. And this, well, it can vary the use case. In my experience, I haven't used this a lot. I have used more off because I need the value, but it can help you for anything that you're trying to do. And the other way is using for each, and this is using the API of arrays. When we say export for each. In the last class, we saw an example from this during the exercise. Here I could use the arrow function, and I can do this. And I will say for each, and it's working the same. So, and if you see, it's one line, the famous one-liner code. These are the 3 ways we can iterate an array. Please, 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 please never use map to iterate over an array, because map is not for iterating information. Map is for transforming an array. Sometimes it can cause confusion about the usage of map. So please use it to transform. This is for transformation, and for each is for iteration. Yeah, that's how we can iterate over it. I don't know if you have any question until this point. Yeah. Okay. So what type of data can we store in the arrays? Well, whatever type we have in JavaScript, we can literally we can create this array. So I'm going to leave the for each here, and I'm going to say this rows. I see that we have a string, we have a number, we have a boolean, we have an object literal. The name is Carlos, and another array that says hey. If I try printing the monstrous array, I will say you see, we're bringing the string, the number, the boolean, the object, because the object have the toString method, and another array. So now let me do the following. If I do the yeah, this is the array, and it's printed this way because the toString method of arrays prints the list separated by comma. Okay, so literally we can store whatever we want in the array. My recommendation is not do this. Try only handle one type of data in your array. Probably there are some cases where you're going to have a mix of two types in an array, but let me show you like how you can handle that. Let's say that because the object, and we're going to do that later, or expose a method that says get entries, this will generate an arrays of an arrays, arrays of arrays, because it's going to generate the key and the value that is assigned to the object, and you're going to have this here. So for example, let's say that the key is a string that is called name. No, it's called money, and the value is 2341 money, and it's 54 and money. Yeah, here you are having two types of data, but this is a regular of arrays. So probably you just have to be careful how you're handling the data and the structure of your array. But it can be useful sometimes. But in other cases, please try to use only one type because it can help you understanding what is happening. When you come back 6 months later, you won't remember what you were doing here and there, and probably you need to debug some bugs there. Okay, and let's move to useful methods of array. If we search for we have for no, this is the string. We look for the method that array have. We see that we have a lot here. Literally, if you're trying to achieve something, please search it here because probably there you're going to find a lot of things that are helpful. So let me show you some of the ones that I use the most. Map, filter, and reduce. This has to be in your toolkit always. Map to transform the arrays, filter to remove property that we don't want, and reduce, that is to transform our array into another array or to transform into another object. We saw also during the practice from the last session that we use it to count the ships, but also we can build objects from arrays using reduce. So it's a really useful method. This can be a little confusing, but let me explain a little fast the way. So I'm going to use sports. I'm going to do the following. I'm going to build an object from this. I will say this will be my sports object. I will say sports that reduce. Now, here the difference is that it won't receive the actual item in the first parameter. Is going to receive something that is called the accumulator. The accumulator is the object or the type or the variable that we are changing over each iteration. And then we are going to receive the actual item. So this will be a sport. Now, what is the logic behind this? Is that we are going in the accumulator because it's an object. Again, we're going to see objects later in a couple more slides, but this is the way we are assigning a new property to the object, and I will say false because we are initializing the object, right? And oh, sorry, this should be later. Let's say iteration. We'll say that we are. Oh no, sorry. I'm doing strange things here. Sorry, it's right. Okay, and I'm going to return accumulator here. Now, the important thing is how we are going to initialize this. If we don't send the second parameter, that it should be the value that we want to initialize, then it's going to start in the second position. So, okay, I'm going to show you the initialization. And later, I'm going to show you what happens if not. Now, I'm telling you right now, okay, I want to start with that empty object, and it's going to start from the position 0. Now, every iteration is going to mutate the object, assign a property with the name of the sport, assign it false, and the accumulator is returning. In the next iteration, the accumulator will have the sport that we already assigned, assign the next one, and return an object. And in the third one, all the sports, assign the new one, and return the accumulator. And after it finished iterating over there, we're going to see what happened there. Now, see, football false, basketball false, and tennis false. Okay. So this is what we can use reduce for. This is one of the applications you can use also to do the counting there. So, for example, if we want to count how many words we have here, words, we can use the same. And well, the thing that I was mentioning about the not sending the initial value is that in this case, probably is going to break. Let's see. Yeah, it only returned football because the first value will be football, the string. And when it iterates, it will say, okay, look, you are not an object, so I'm going to do this, but it won't affect you. And we return football again. And in the next one, we'll say, okay, you are not an object. I will do this anyways, but it won't affect you, and I will return the string. That's the reason why we only see football here. So what is the teaching behind this is that if you don't send the initial value, it's going to get the first one. So if for some reason this was an object, an empty object, is working the same because now this is starting with the empty object and the accumulator will be equal to the object at first. Okay, so do you have any question about the reduce? I know that can be a little confusing at the beginning. If not, we can continue. Please, if you have it.
I
Yeah.
honestly didn't get the difference between reduce and map.
Okay, okay. So the difference will be how you are going to apply the two methods. So map has to be simple. You have to stick to simple with map. We are going to try to do the same example with using map. Now I'm going to create again sports objects. And I will say sports.map. Remember, the keyword here is that map will return a transform array. That means that the length will be the same, meaning that if we have 3 items, the length of the return array will be 3 items. We are not mutating like which data we're going to use or which base data we are transforming the array. Instead, we are transforming each item in place. The length will be the same, and the properties could be the same because we can change the properties. So for example, now I'm iterating over the sports, right? I'm getting the sport. And now, if I try to do this, I won't be able to do it because if I want to achieve this, then I need to define an object over here that it will say accumulator later, and will be assigned an object. And every time we iterate over the property, we're going to assign here the sport, and we are going to say false. Now, here's one of the conditions that I told you that you don't need to do. If you won't be transforming the same items in the array, then this won't be a map. This has to be a for each, right? But again, we're going to stick map for trying to make the difference. Now, if I try to do, I'm going to print accumulator, I'm going to print the sports objects. If you see this is accumulator, the first one, I'm going to split this. Okay, so this is false. Okay, yeah. So what happened here? If you see, accumulator was the one that was being mutated over each iteration, and it tried to add this one. I don't know, because this is. You see, we achieved the same, but the difference is how we did it, and this is not the pattern that we want. Map will iterate over each property, and we return each property transformed. If you see, the sports object is this array that was generated by the map function. You see that we have false, false, false. This is because when we do an assignation, the values also return. Now, what happened here? The length of the array is the same. The position of the properties are the same. The thing is that the array was transformed. Now, we achieved this because we were mutating something that was outside, that was this object. But again, because we are not interested on mutating or changing the properties in the array, this shouldn't be a map. This should be a for each if we want to achieve that. And we could do the same that we were doing. But the best practice is to reduce. Now, let me put it simple. And I know it can be confusing. Map has to return, will return a transformed array. So always think, if you want to transform your list because you want to make it uppercase, or you want to get the ASCII values of each character, or you want to, let's say, transform everything to numbers, then you're going to use map. You will be transforming the same array, each item of the same array, into something that you will need. And a reduce, the difference is that you're going to iterate over each item of the array, but you're going to return something else. In this case, if the array was about numbers and you want to do the count of, well, the sum or the addition of every number in the array, then reduces your key, because you are going to iterate over each item. You're going to be additioning the previous number to the actual number, and then you're going to return only a value. Probably that will be something easy. I'm going to do this last example. So I will say this is the money, the savings of each month. I will say 1 month was 200, today was 35, and then we're going to have 67. Okay. So what happens? I use map here. I could say I could return the to say, okay, I want each money to be, okay, let's say that I have cents here. And the thing that I want is to remove the cents from my savings. I can use math floor, that is a function exposed by the math object, that is the math object for JavaScript. And I will say, okay, please, I want to remove the cents in my money, but also I want to check how much money did I store. So here I will say accumulated savings money and accumulated savings will be equal, oh, no. Okay. I'm going to start from 0. This is work as expected. So what happened here? Again, map is for transformation of the items. I remove the cents in my numbers. This is using map, and this is how you should do it. Always with map, you're going to transform every item in your array, and we return only one value, having the sum or the addition of all the savings in all the savings of the year, right? So it's only to keep this in mind. Map is for transformation, transforming the same array, reduces to get another value from the values in the array. I don't know if that answers your question, Guillermo.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Okay, let's continue then. With objects, the famous object literal. This object literal is something that you are going to use a lot in JavaScript. It's a way of building objects in the fly. So I'm going to do this, name Lucia, H32, is Mario. Now, remember the example that we were doing with the structuring part? We could use this object to do the same. We can pass it to functions. We can use it to store values. We can use to make a cache in memory cache, so you can get the information that you're trying to access. So it's really easy. You just use the syntax is a name for the variable, the assignation, and the brackets. And you're going to set the properties. Here you can set whatever thing that this takes us to the object literal data. We can even define functions inside this object literal. So we're going to do the same here, get variable status. is a function, and we're going to return the name is Mary. Is that is Mary. If I try to do users that get married status, is a return. No, I'm going to use a return here. Get married, false, because we define it here false. Now, there is important thing. If we are using this object, we are assigning a method, then we have to use this because this will reference the object definition. With this method, we can literally access each property or all the properties that we define inside the object, and we can do the same. Now, I will recommend that object literals is used to store that, like to define a shape of a type that you want to work with, like users, let's say sports, team, whatever you need, because it can help you having like this structure. You could also add methods, but if the logic increases, then probably we are going to use classes. So try to stick it to object literals at the minimum. You're going to see a lot of software using object literals to build this. But I will say that because we have the object-oriented paradigm that is using classes, I will say let's try to use classes wherever when we have like a complex logic, and object literals will be something more like when we need to store data. Let's say that we fetch information from the backend and we created the users, and we are going to get this. In the DOM, probably we are going to use this to set the DOM element that we're trying to get. In this case, the DOM, if for the people that don't know, is the HTML elements that we're trying to get. We're going to see a little of that next week when we start with Cypress. But yeah, this is important just to know, because you are going to see a lot of object literal declaration on JavaScript. Now, the counterpart, classes. With classes, what we can do is generate well, classes, you know, for other languages. So in JavaScript, the constructor, well, is the constructor, and this will receive the parameters that we need that will set up the class. In this case, I'm going to, for example, its name. And I'm assigning to this. Again, this will reference everything inside this class. So this name will be name. It's important to this. And in other languages, if I don't remember wrong, in Java, we can define the property outside of the constructor, and we do something like string name and this, and then we say this name dot name. In JavaScript, it's not needed. We can do this on the fly and automatically will build the property. This is because everything in JavaScript is an object, so doing this type of notation is valid. And when animal, so here I'm building the property. And if I try to do my pet dot name, I am accessing the property that I defined here. So this is the basic building of a class. Remember, constructor, the parameters that you need, and the way you are going to use it. Why this name? Because this is the reason. We can define a function that then that says say my pet name. And because you will probably need to use the name that you used to construct the animal. Here you're going to say that log this dot name. And I will say this, and I will say, okay, my pet. Say my pet name. It's working the same, right? So this name assignation here is, remember, just to access these properties inside the method that you're going to use. The best practice of classes is that every property should be hidden to the outside, and you should access each property using functions, because you don't want everyone to know the interface or the properties of an object. You just want to expose something that is easier to interact with your class. That is a technical thing. Getters and setters. There is something interesting with the classes in JavaScript. We can use getters and setters. And what are those? With functions, we execute a function and get something, right? Well, with getters, we can achieve the same thing without the usage of functions. So for example, let me get uppercase. The way we build the getter is the same as a function. It's different that we are using the keyword get at the beginning. And I will say, I will return here this that to uppercase. And let's look at that. My pet uppercase name. Now remember, I'm not calling the method because it's a getter property. Rex. So this is the famous getter. Now, for the getter, it's important to always return the value, because you will be accessing that property as you will be. Sorry. You will be accessing that property. Sorry, we are accessing that value as property, not as a function. So you're going to use here. And there is the counterpart that is called setter. Set or set. Check. Set. And set is the same, but to set values. So for example, I'm going to say, I will set the birthday date. Yeah, birthday year. Birth. I will receive the year that it was born. And I will do the following. This method should not return anything. Instead, it should set something. In this case, I will say the age will be equal to 2021 minus the year that was, that was birth. In this case, I will do the following. I will say, okay, my pets, the birth year will be 2017. Now, I want to check dot age. And if I try running this, it says 4 years. Why? Because the set property, when we assign a value, it will be triggering this method, and here you can do the logic that you want. And with that, you're going to transform something. Now, I wanted to mention this, but in the real use cases, I haven't used get and set a lot. There is frameworks like Vue that uses this to set something that is called computed properties. That, well, in the framework implementation, it says that is to have cache, like your state cache, but that is another topic. But getting back to the main point is that you probably won't be using this a lot. Probably you are going to use, and if you're going to use it, it will be something like this. But in the majority of cases, you are going to always use functions, because you are going to transform the data that you already have, or you're going to say something with that data. So for example, if this was something about the DVD, a DV connection, it's probably that the method that you're going to expose is connect. And you don't really need to expose something to the client. It's more that you're going to help the client with something. So that's the reason why get answered is probably something that you won't be doing a lot, but it's important to know it. And you see somewhere, you know now what it's doing with that. So remember, in the majority of the cases for actions, use methods, and get setters are transform or retrieve data, transform probably. But I will recommend always go with methods. And if you see that this will fit in your use case, go with getter and setter. But always try to use methods because it's the most common thing to do. And the last thing before we pass to question is the static. I'm going to use this method. A static method. I'm sorry, the static keyword. The only thing that does the static keyword is that you can access methods inside your class without creating an instance. So for example, if I do console, I will say animal that let's try the fold. I want to play with this. If I try to run this, it should return undefined. Oh no, this return this name because it's referring to the name class. You know, JavaScript is always a magic trick. So yeah, now it's referencing the class. So that's why it's printed animal here. Interesting. But the thing here is that I'm going to try and active. If I try to do this, then I'm accessing a method without doing the creation of the instance of the class. This will be helpful for static. There is a pattern that really benefits of this, that is the singleton pattern, that is an object that you will create and you want to have the same instance of the object during all the application life. Probably let's say the one for the DB, in this case that you created a connector for the DB. The instance, the singleton, the name is singleton pattern. You're going to use that. Now, also the singleton pattern is something that can be useful, but there are other patterns that that convince you not to use the single pattern because it can lead you to hard maintaining issues. It can be difficult to maintain when a singleton exists. So they say use dependency injection instead. Okay. Again, this is a clean code and pattern tip is a little bit about outside the class, but I want you to know because it can help you. Okay, questions about classes? No, this, you can write me in the chat if you don't want to talk, and if you don't question, that's good. I hope that you're understanding everything that I'm trying to explain to you today. Now, we are going to talk about data validations. This is where JavaScript gets a little trickier, so it's important to understand what is happening. So there is this term called type coercion that refers to the process of automatic or implicit conversion of values from one data type to another. I want to do some trivia here. What do you think are the expected values for these expressions? I will try to pick different people. Let's say we have 5. I'm going to pick 5 people, and I just want you to guess what is happening here and what do you think will be the expected output. I will go from top to bottom in my list of participants. So Alfredo, what do you think it will be returned in the first line? Alfredo, are you there? Okay, I think not. Christian, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Uh,
so try to guess. What is the value that we return in the first one?
30.
30. Okay, I'm going to take note of this. Let me type validation. So, Christian, you said that the first will return 30, right? Guillermo, what do you think will return the second line?
I'm not sure.
Try
I'm-
again.
I'm assuming maybe because I'm thinking in Java that won't be possible. You throw an error.
Okay, it will throw an error. It's okay, it's okay. We want just to take a fun about JavaScript. Okay, so the second one will be an error. Okay, then I have Marcelo. Yeah, Marcelo, what do you think will return in the third one?
I would say that an error as well, because there are different types of.
Okay, it's okay, it's okay. Sure, will return an error. Then I have Nelson. Nelson, what do you think the fourth one will be returned?
It will be returned 25.
25, okay. Okay. It will return for the fourth, 25. And the last one will be Oswaldo. What do you think will be returning the last one?
I think it's 1.
One? Okay. Sorry, right, Oswaldo. In the fifth one, 1, right? Okay, let's see what does this do on JavaScript in the reality. So let me write this really fast. Oh, no. I think I have this here. Give me a sec.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I meant to say 4.
4. Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. Okay. Just give me a sec. I think I have this. Oh, no, I didn't copy that. Okay. So I'm going to say x 10 plus 20. So we can have it. Addition. And 8. Now we have 20 through 20 now. Through 20. This will be 20 divided by 5. This is 5. 5. And this is true plus 3. Okay. Now doesn't work. Stopping. Oh, I'm going to do this. X C division multiplication. And I hope to no. Now let's compare with the results. So Christian said that it was going to return 30, and JavaScript said no, I'm going to return 1020. What's the reason behind that? Is because JavaScript says, okay, the plus sign is something that we use for concatenation. We have a string there, meaning that the temporally is a string that we want to concatenate. Then I'm going to cast it to a string, and I'm going to do the concatenation. That's why we see a 1020 here, not a 30. Good job, JavaScript. That are the things that, is something funny to work with JavaScript. Guillermo told me that the second one is going to throw an error. And JavaScript told me, no, because I'm going to use the sign clause that is for concatenation. We have a string, then this probably is going to be a string. So the good guy JavaScript, print true 20. For the division, Marcelo told me that we are going to receive an error, and JavaScript told us, okay, because the division sign, the division sign is using for math, then probably the thing that is incorrect here is the number. Is the string. So I'm going to cast it to a string, to a number, and I'm going to do the division. And that's why we return a 4 here. Nelson, very good, Nelson. It returned 25, and it's okay because the same logic, because okay, it's a multiplication, and we do only multiplication with numbers, meaning that this string is going to need to be cast. That's the reason why we did the multiplication here. And now, Oswaldo, you were right, true again. Okay, very good. Congratulations to you. Kudos to you. It was 4 because in this case, it didn't detect any string, but it detected a number and said, okay, that means that I have to cast true to a number. And what is the number associated with true? Is number 1. And that's the reason why it returned 4. So you see, JavaScript can be a little tricky. So this is the type correction. JavaScript, because he's a good guy, is going to try to infer the data that you are working with, and he's going to try to do this. Remember, this is the thing that we were talking on the last session about the typings in JavaScript. It can be something good, it can be something bad. So this leads us to the comparison of information. Thank you for participating. I think this was really interesting. I'm going to do the following. I'm going to compare these two values now. Now, I think okay, I haven't explained you what are these two, but I want you to take a guess. So, Raymond, could you take a guess about what is going to return this? This will be a true or false.
Okay, so the first one, the console.log 10 equals like double equals 10. It's like it's comparing it as it is. So it's gonna be. Are you looking for an answer of true or false?
Yeah, you should say it's going to return true or false.
It's gonna be true.
True. Okay. And do you want to guess with the second one?
Yeah, for the second one, as far as I can remember, if it's like 3 equal signs, it means that it's trying to compare the value and then the data type as well. So I think it's gonna be true. Sorry. I think it's gonna be false.
Okay. Awesome. I think you are totally right. Yeah, that would be the values there, true and false. Okay, thank you. So the thing that happened here is that for the second one, we are using something that is called a strict equal. In the strict equal, we compare data types and values. That's the reason why we here receive false, because this is not a string, then, and this is a number. Yeah, this doesn't make sense. And when we use two equals, then we are only comparing by type. And because good guy JavaScript tried to do the type conversion, it says, okay, because this is a string, probably this is a string. Oh yeah, this is the same value. Okay, so these are the two ways that we can compare things in JavaScript. I would recommend always go with a strict equal, unless you need this, but I would say always go with a strict equal, because JavaScript is a good guy, and probably you can introduce bugs that are hard to find because of it. Okay, so this is about data validation. I will try to speed up. We have 30, almost 30 minutes with the things that are missing. I will try to go fast with this. So it's not as complicated, but please let me know if you have any questions. Export and import. Now, there are two ways of handling modules in JavaScript, using CommonJS and using ES modules. With the CommonJS, I'm going for this example. Let me show you something that I already built, just to go a little faster. Export. For the CommonJS, the way that we define modules is using the module.exports. Now, the module.exports, we can define it like this, that this will be a default export, meaning that when we import the file, this is the first object that will be fetched, and we can use this module exports by object that we literally are building an object literal, and we can assign, we can reach these values like if we were working with an object. So this is like object literal. Yeah. So things to keep in mind is that every function here have a name, and we are assigned like this. This is a JavaScript tip. If the property that you are using or you are building the object literal match with the value that you're assigning, in this case, I am building a property called add, and I'm assigning the function add, then we can do the shortcut here and only write add. This will say, okay, I'm going to create a property called add and assign the value add. This is, it can help you like building these things. Otherwise, it will be something like add, subtract, and multiply. So it's only sure things, just to keep it clean and dirty. Okay, so well, getting back to the important things, we can export an object, and when we try to import that modules, then using the default export, we use the keyword require. We search for the file. In this case is DB, and we are using the default export. So what is DB doing here? DB is a class that will expose the method connect. If I go to index, then I'm going to see that I'm passing the URL that is here, and will be trying to connect, right? But what are the advantage of using this is that we are achieving a more maintainable application, and everything won't be in the same file. We can now edit only one file if we want it to handle the DB connection, or if we wanted to edit the math operation, then we are going to do it only in one place. So remember, if you want to achieve maintainability in your project, try to separate everything into modules. Now, for the require of math, it worked the same. The difference here is that I'm applying destructuring to get the properties that I have set here. Now I'm going to execute this. Okay. And export. In this case, you see I'm just logging. I'm doing the add of 1 and 2, subtract the 3 and 2, multiply 3 by 3. Add 3, subtract 1, multiply 9, and then I'm calling the connect method in the instance to try to run it. Okay. So here the important thing is for CommonJS, we use require and module exports. Now, then we have the ES modules. In ES modules, we have export default and import name from path. Now, this is again a sure syntax. Well, every time I refer to sure syntax, is syntax that tries to improve the way that things were writed before. In this case, I have to be here. Is the same logic. The difference is how we are exporting the module. I have export default. Remember here in the other was module.export, and I'm setting DB. And for the maths, I'm using export function add. Instead of declaring module export and an object here, I'm just setting export to the function that I want to export. And the way that we import it on the files is using now import. We have import the class from this file, and we can use the same destructor from this file. Remember, the keywords here are the import. Now let me open this index side by side so we can see the difference. Here we're using require and assigning a variable. Here the variable is created during this import and is reading from this file. Here we use require and here we use from. Again, here we are using import and we are defining these variables using the from path, and the same happened here. It's the same syntax. The only thing is that these modules make it more legible, and also is now supported because this was something that was not supported at all. Well, in the majority of the clients now it's supported on Node starting from the version 14. And to use it, we need to define something that is called type module in the package.json. You're wondering what is package.json. In the next class, we're going to know that. But keep in mind, if we want to use modules, we are going to use that module here. Also, we can use it now in the browser. And to do that, this is just a quick tip. I just want to focus on the next thing. That's the reason why I'm not doing an example for this. But we can do import a script. Remember the first part where we were importing the scripts? Then I just have to append this property called type module. And we can use the same syntax of export and import now in the browsers. So that is a really good thing. There are really good tools that take the advantage of this approach, and also is a way to improve a way to optimize the scripts for web pages. So it's important just to keep in mind. Now we can do that on browser. I'm sorry we go fast with this. Do you have any questions regarding this? Remember, CommonJS module exports required as modules export default import. I would recommend go with ACE modules because it's really useful. Okay, if we don't have any more questions, let's go to the last step: sync and async code. Okay, so I will try to put this simple so we can understand the difference between synchronous and asynchronous and the way we can handle it in JavaScript. So synchronous, things happen at a time. So for example, if you are working with a system that tries to read a file system, before executing everything else, you need the software to finishing reading the file, right? So we need to wait until the read is finished, and then we are going to continue. The same happens when we are executing a function. As the example that we were doing, we wanted the math function, or we wanted the class execution, the class method execution to finish before we can proceed with the software. So that means synchronous. The analogy here is, let's say that you want to bake a cake, and let's say you prepare your cake, you put it in the oven. The synchronous version of you baking a cake is that you put the cake into the oven, you close the oven, you put a timer, and you wait the 30 minutes until the cake is done, so you can continue doing something else. So imagine you yourself standing in front of the oven, waiting 30 minutes until the cake is done, so you can take out the cake, and then you can go to watch TV, right? That is the synchronous version of how you will bake a cake. Then we have the asynchronous version. Asynchronous says that multiple things happen at the same time. For example, the example would be that instead of waiting in front of the oven until the cake is ready. You put the cake in the oven, you set the timer, and then you go to watch TV until the 30 minutes has passed. You hear the ting of the timer. You get back and you get out the cake. Now that is the simple version. What happened there is while the cake was being baked in the oven, you were watching TV. So there were two things happen at the same time. And when the cake were ready, you were notified by the ping of the timer, and you get back, take out the cake. So that is asynchronous. And synchronous is you wait in front of the oven until the cake is ready. In let's say in the technical language, we will refer as asynchronous when we fetch a request from the backend. So you want to continue, let's say, rendering the page, and you're going to send the request. But because there is a dependency probably in the request that you need because you are going to get the user information, there are other things that will continue executing. And the code that depends from that execution, it will wait until they get the data back. And when they get the data back, it is going to continue executing this. Do you have any question with the analogy? I hope that it was really illustrative so you can have an idea of the sync and async operations. Yeah, everything is good? Okay. If that is the case, then I think we are ready to move to this. Now, JavaScript by default is a synchronous language. JavaScript goes to watch TV while the cake is baking. And the issue with that is that there are things that we need to wait before continue the execution of our code. And that's where callbacks, promises, and async await take place. So let me show you an example. So what our good guy JavaScript do. I'm going to close this one. And let me open what we had here. Examples. I'm going to start with call. I'm going to call a timeout file. Okay, so I'm going to do. Let's create this situation. I'm going. Well, I will send a WhatsApp to my mom because I need to check if she's in home. Then I'm going to turn my car because if she told me that yes, I'm going to drive to her home, right? So in this case, we have three functions. I had sent WhatsApp to mom. In this case, I will say console over here that says turn on car. That says turn on car, and the function that says drive to home. Because I just want to move on only when my mom told me, okay, yeah, I'm so driving home, right? So this is really simple right now, and the send WhatsApp to mom. Car. Right. Okay, so I'm sending a WhatsApp. I'm turning on my car and I'm driving home. Now, let's add the following condition. I'll drive to my home only if I receive a response from my mom. And let's say that my mom timeouts will respond in, I'm going to use seconds here, but let's say that these are hours. So I'm going to say, okay, here, and this will happen 4 seconds. Just quick tip in set timeout is a function that will execute only when the condition has met and the condition is 44,000 milliseconds has passed. So you can use this for say setting timers. Okay, so after 4 seconds has passed, in this case, this is an example. In the practice, it will be 4 hours. Just to make the analogy there, until my mom has confirmed me that she's in home, I'm going to drive home. But what happened with JavaScript? I'm going to execute it. I send the WhatsApp. I turn on the car. I drive home. And then the message I received is that, yeah, I'm here. So you see, 4 hours passed. Probably I was in the house at the first hour, and she was not there. So I have to wait like 3 or more hours until I was able to do something else. Okay, so JavaScript is asynchronous by nature. So everything will be executed at the same time when is needed. We are talking about set timeout. Also, there is something called set interval that is to set timers that are looping, let's say. So every 4 seconds is going to happen something. We are talking about, we did a fetch to the backend. We are talking everything that probably, also like reading a file from the system, everything that interacts with the external component that won't return immediately. That is something where that there is asynchronous inside JavaScript. Now, what happened? I need to know when my mom is at home so I can continue moving. So I can turn my car and that I can drive home. Now, this is where our first friend callback is going to help us. I'm going to split this. Close, please. Okay. I want to copy this because it's the same logic. Okay. Now, we are going to use right now something that is called callbacks. And what is the structure of a callback? We are going to send a function because in JavaScript, we can use whatever thing we need as a parameter. I'm going to send a function that we receive. This is the basic standard for a callback. It receives as first parameter an error, and for the second one, a response. So we need to check always if an error exists. Oh, sorry, this condition is not correct. It should be only if error, because here I'm saying if there is no error, I will say something happened. So sorry about that, but this should be ignore this. If error, I'm going to say something happened. Why is that I can do this and I don't have to do like an equal something? Because remember, every type has a Boolean value associated with it. So if I do this, then an error has a value, then it will say, okay, yeah, this is true. So that means that probably you have an error there. Coming back to callbacks, I check if an error exists there and I will print something. And if not, I'm going to say, okay, yeah, I received a message. So this is the basic structure of a callback. A function that we receive error and response. So let's take that and move it to our code. Now, the callback is a function that is executed until the condition is met. So I'm going to say, okay, this is the callback I will receive. I will use functions right now, but also we can use the arrow function. But let me stick to function just to be more easy to understand right now. Okay. And after the console log is ready, I will call this. So in this case, I'm telling, okay, I'm going to send a WhatsApp to one, and I'll wait until the condition is met. That is the jet I'm here. And in this case, here we receive an error and the response. Right now, I'm not sending anything, so these variables won't be used, but we're going to check it later. Okay, so let's see what happened now. I'm going to sending WhatsApp. Okay, that's good. I waited 4 hours until the message I'm here came. Now I can turn the car and I can drive home now. What happened here is that I use callback. What happened if for some reason here, I don't know, let's say that is not Japan here, instead this is, I won't be back, right? If that is the case, then I could return here, let's say, I'm going to return a string that says, I won't be back today. In this case, I have to do the following. If error exists, then I'm going to print, no, she's not, right? And I'm going to return here because I don't want to execute this. If I set a return here, then I'm going to jump the remaining logic in the function. If I try running this until the 4 seconds are met, no, she's not. So you see, I didn't turn my car and let it driven drive home. So this is something that you need to consider using callbacks. And now I will recommend you not to use callbacks anymore. Why? Because what happened if turn on a car had a callback? So 15 minutes. And driving to home had a callback. Then I will have to do this response, and then I will have to do this error response. And imagine that this is the simple case, but then we have the complex case where we need to get to the pharmacy, we need to pass to the gas, we need to do a lot of things before going home. Then this will start increasing, and there is where we met our friend callback help. It was a really good solution using callbacks at the time, but when you depend a lot of asynchronous operation, this was going to start growing. And this looks simple because we don't have complex logic, but we imagine that we start having something like if error console dot error, we start seeing this, and this is only the error. Imagine that you need logic that will handle this something more. So here the logic will increase, and well, it will be a mess to maintain. So this is the third version of handling the asynchronous code. Remember, callbacks you're going to see when you pass functions to the function, the asynchronous function, and will receive error and response. Okay, now let's move on with promises. Now, promises need a little bit more setup for the asynchronous operation, and we are going to see why. With the promises, we are going to use something that is called a promise JavaScript. This receives a function as a parameter that have an accept and a reject method. And I'm going to grab this set time out in this. Now, one thing I need to tell, okay, when I'm here, I'm going to say, okay, yeah, this condition met. Now we can proceed with the logic. Now, here the boilerplate is more in the part where the asynchronous code happened, but in the way that where we are consuming that asynchronous code, it will be easier. So for example, send WhatsApp to mom. Now, this has to be a returning promise because the promise has to be returned from the function. Then I can access the method then that will wait until the condition is met, and I can do the following. Let's see if I will wait the 4 hours or not. Promises. Sending WhatsApp. Okay, I'm waiting for the 4 hours until the response has come. Okay, I'm here, I'm turning on the car, and I'm driving home. What benefits do we have this compared to the callback? is that it will be much cleaner in the way that we are consuming the asynchronous code. We have to do a little setup, that's right, but I will say that it's easier and better to set up the synchronous code instead of doing that mess like this on this part of the code. And what happened if for some reason there is an error again? And here I'm going to say, instead of this, here I will throw an error. We throw error that says no, I'm not. Okay. This has to be passed to the reject call. I'm sorry, it's not error. So, and what I can do, I can set the catch here, and this will have an error. And this error, also that error, let's bring me what happened there. No promises. Send the ones up. Nope, I'm not. What happened here is a much cleaner way, a better way of writing the promises and the asynchronous code. So we can use them, and we can even do the following. Let's say that we want to execute each function separately from each other. So I'm going to do, let's see. Let me see if this works. If not, it's because I'm not returning that. Let's try. How this works. This has to fail right now. Let's wait the 4 hours right now. Okay, no, I'm not. So I'm going to do this now. Now I'm waiting the 4 seconds, well, the 4 hours. Yeah, I'm here, turning on the card, right. So we can write this like much simpler, and we can define the action as a series of steps now. So read this code and read this code, and you will say, okay, yeah, this is much simpler to understand what is happening here. Okay. So promises was born to fight against this demon they call hell. But no, is there an easier way to define a promise and to consume it? Because yeah, this is cool, but we have to do this chaining of method, this, then this, that. I would like be more easier, and when I write the code, read the code, to be more like straightforward about what is happening. Okay, for that reason, async await exists. Async await is only a sure syntax over the promises, right? If we have async await, we can still continue using that. But the idea is to use the async await syntax. And what is the await syntax? Let me show you. Okay, let's get back to the first place. Again, I'm going to use this promise here. I'm going to copy because it's the same definition. Remember, a set and reject, the set timeout, the set here. Now, these syntax have a characteristic. We need to define the keyword async to the function that will be handling this logic, and then we have to await the results, right? So here the important, well, in the current version of ECMAScript, this is important because the function then will be wrapped as a promise, and the other function that depends on it know that is a promise now. In future nodes of version of the JavaScript specification, this won't be needed anymore because the async will be able to be used at top level, it says. And when we say at top level, is because we won't need to do a wrapper. And what is the wrapper? Let me show you. There is something called this name I forget. Let me give you a better example. This is a JavaScript. Let me is the I want to give you the correct name. Fee. Oh, forgot the name. Sorry, it's Friday. I forgot the names and other things. Okay. Just to make, I'm going to get the name back to you. Don't worry, Raymond. You can have access to this recording later, so you can check out what we saw today. I'm going to get back to you with the name, so we don't lose time with this. But yeah, I'm going to add that to do just to get back with the name, because it's something that is used a lot in JavaScript. Sorry, I forget the name. It was something really easy, but okay, let's continue with it. Now, the idea behind this is a self-executed function. This function will be executed every time we import or execute this file. And when can we use this? Let's say that some modules in JavaScript use this way of defining the things. So you could execute a procedure when you import the file. Now, how we define this? We start with a parenthesis. And here I'm going to use a callback function. Now here, if you see, I'm declaring a statement that this will be executed, or I'm defining the callback, the arrow function. And because this is a function already, this other parenthesis that I'm sending here is telling, okay, execute this function. It's like I'm doing something like this. So, but this won't work. But this is a function that I'm just defining and I'm executing at the same time. This is what happened here. What is happening here? Because the async keyword has to be added before the use of await is important to this. We are defining async here, and I'm going to move the logic to here. Now, I will set the await keyword here because I'm waiting for the WhatsApp for mom. I will turn the car and drive home. Now, let's try to move this. I will say not async await. I'm sending the WhatsApp. I'm waiting the 4 seconds. And voila. Yep, I'm here. Turn on the car, driving home. Okay, so the syntax now, if we compare it to promises, is almost as little. The thing is that now you don't need to add the then. And the catch, we're going to see how we can catch the errors. Now, if you read this, is more procedural way. So you are going to read the, like, you don't need to interpret what is doing then and the function here. You are going to read it as if you are reading normal code, synchronous code. So this is a sure syntax that is wrapped around promises. Now, how we can catch the errors? Here we can use something called try catch. The try catch, well, we can use it in Java. There is also this try catch if I don't remember wrong. And what is the idea is that you're going to execute code, and if there is an error, you're going to catch it and show something. So I'm going to give it console error. And if I try running this, no async await. I said the error, yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not. So here we have to remember to use the try catch to catch the errors. If not, the error will bubble up and say that probably is going to fall into the Node.js error handler or the browser error handler. Okay, so this is like the way we can write using async await. Now, what is the proposal for the new syntax I was just telling you a couple minutes ago? Is that the JavaScript standard is proposing that we don't need to use async when we are using await at top level. So we can do this without worrying about doing this declaration of the automatic call function. Okay, but for the moment, we need to do this if we're using that. Now, if you are going to use it like in a function that says, let's say that you have something handler, you could do a sync function, call procedure, and you can do the same here. And you probably are going to call procedure and await here. But again, you will need a wrapper like this to execute it there, but you can do that there. Okay, we are almost finishing. I think we were able to cover everything today. So do you have any question regarding the things that we saw today? Any questions? I know that probably there are a lot of things that we missed, but JavaScript is really big. But I hope that everything that we learned this week is going to help you in the next session. Starting from Monday, we are going to start with Cypress. We're going to just do the checkpoint about what we learned about JavaScript. I really hope everyone learned a lot. We are going to see the Node.js setup. And what are the other things? Probably we're going to see how to access the DOM. Okay, so just before we leave, I just need to fill something. So please don't disconnect. Give me 1 second, please. Just checking everyone is here. Okay. Okay. One second. So okay, so I think today we are 8 participants, right? 2, 4, 6, 7, 8. Yeah. Well, 8 participants. 6, 7. Okay, awesome. So if we don't have any more questions, I think we're ready for today. Thank you for turning in and being present in these sessions. We are going to start with automatic testing next week. So have a good week, a great weekend, and see you on Monday.
You too, Fernando. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Have
Thank
a nice
you.
weekend.
You have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Everyone have a great weekend.